What's going on, crackers? Got another whip update for you here. About a year ago I did a how to crack a bullwhip video, and in that video some of the audio was kind of messed up. You couldn't hear me very well. I apologize for that. I've had a couple of comments on it, so I figured go ahead and sort of do a redo of that, just a quick redo. Try and talk louder and ensure that you can hear what I'm saying. So I'm going to go over two basic fundamentals of throwing a whip if you're a beginner. I'm going to do it on this whip, which I just finished. This is a 6-foot 3-belly kangaroo hide bullwhip in black with an 8-inch handle. I've only cracked it maybe 3 times. Still need some adjustments, so on some of the throws may not crack terribly well, but that's okay. All right, so the first fundamental you need to understand is throwing a whip, a real whip, is much different than throwing a towel whip. Most people have taken a small hand towel and tried to smack their sibling on the butt with it, or their significant other. And when you do that, you throw the towel and you whip it back. And that's because the towel isn't long enough to get a rollout on it. You've got to create the rollout by pulling it back. But so many people have that ingrained in them that when they pick up a whip, it's the first time they're doing it, they'll throw the whip the same way. They'll throw it and pull it back. And that has a tendency to bring the tail of the whip back and to hit you. So if you're throwing a bullwhip for the first time, just get it into your head at the beginning that what you're going to do is you're going to throw it and point. Notice how my hand just stays pointed forward. I'm pointing the end of the handle where I want the whip to crack. I'm not flinging it back towards me, just cracking it and pointing. So throw, point. When the crack is done, the thong has stopped moving, then you can move it around. As you get better and better, you don't have to wait for that. You can play around with it however you want and not have to worry about it hitting you, but as you're learning, throw, point, and then throw again. The second fundamental is virtually every whip crack that you're going to want to learn as a beginner requires arm, shoulder, elbow, wrist movements that you've already used before, more than likely. A good example of that is skipping a stone. Maybe you haven't skipped a stone successfully, but you've thrown a stone, I'm sure. Tried to throw a stone across a lake, have it skip across. When you're throwing that stone, what you're doing is you're reaching back, you're throwing the stone, and at the end of your throw, you're giving your wrist a flick. And what that flick does is it creates spin on that stone, so it makes it skip. Well, on a sidearm flick, you're doing the same thing. Just pretend that the heel knot, which is what you hold, is a skipping stone. And just throw it like that. Put that little cock of the wrist at the very end, like you're putting spin on a stone, and that's going to get the whip to crack. Another common thing that people have done, I'm sure not everybody has done this, but a lot of people probably have, is bowling. So when you throw a bowling ball, you can either just, you can granny throw it, whatever. We're not talking about that. We're talking about like a mildly sophisticated bowling ball throw. It'd be if you pick up the ball, you put 2 fingers in it, you leave your thumb out of a hole, and on your swing forward, you flick your wrist, you cock your wrist and twist it, and then let go of the ball. And what that'll do is put spin on the ball, and then you can get that nice curve. So if you want to do an underhand flick, it's the same thing. Pretend you're holding a bowling ball, swing the bowling ball forward, add some spin, that's going to get you a crack. If you think about it as if you're picking up a foreign object you've never touched before that could potentially hurt you, you're going to be very dainty about how you throw it, and you're going to overthink it. But if you throw it and you think that you imagine yourself doing something you've done before, you're likely going to get a crack out of it. Another good example would be a whip crack that I call the Lynbrook Slugger, and that's just throwing it like a baseball bat. If you've ever thrown a baseball bat, a lot of times at the end of your baseball bat swing, what you'll do is you'll sort of flick your wrist forward, and that's if you're tipping the ball and you want to get that extra little bit of oomph at the very end of the bat to hit the ball. You do that little flick of the wrist, makes the ball go further. So this is not a sanctioned crack by any organization. I've never seen anyone do it but me, but hold your whip like a baseball bat, swing it like a baseball bat, swing it like you're hitting a grand slam out of the park. Just flick your wrist at the very end. For a forward throw, pretend it's a baseball in your hand, and you're going to throw it Just like if you were throwing a ball, you're going to put spin on it. Cock that wrist, flick it forward, leave it pointed. So if you throw a ball, if you skip a rock, you go bowling. Another good one would be if you've ever thrown a frisbee, like a backhand frisbee. Whenever you throw a frisbee, you want to get spin on it, so you flick your wrist at the end of it. Imagine that you got a frisbee in your hand. Same thing. Same action. So, if you do those two fundamentals, when you throw, you point forward. You don't flick it back, you point it forward. And if you just relate your activity to something you've done in the past, you should be able to get a crack out without much of a problem.